funny. We were having such a good time, just like with our friends and their kids, and I think because it was a group of us, you're into each other. Do you know what I mean? You kind of your interactions with each other. Whereas maybe if it had just been me and Jerry and the kids, you probably spend a bit more time looking around.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Now, I guess I have been dancing around the question posed at the outset as well. Was Madeleine alone when she died? Now, I want to deal with this question across three dimensions. Number one, patterns of behavior during their week in prior deluge. 2, sleeping arrangements. And 3, the night in question. Now, let's deal with each very, very briefly. Number 1, patterns of behavior during their week in prior deluge. Regardless of what we know or think we know, for neglect to be really serious, it would need to be systemic, habitual, in other words. A pattern. Is there a pattern? In the Ramsey case, one can test this theory across a myriad of options. How was the family dog treated? Was the house neat and tidy? Were the children cooked and fed proper meals? Were they healthy? Did parents intervene when a child was hurt? Is the child often crying or distressed? Were they taken to the doctor? Was the attention they did receive appropriate, etc.? In the MCCANN case, the fabric is thinner because the children are necessarily younger, but there is something that stands out. Prior to Madeleine disappearing, she cried because when she woke up, she was alone, and she complained to her mother about this. It's not the end of the world, obviously. Parents can make mistakes, but in the context of what happened to Madeleine, minimizing this mistake after the fact is something of an orange flag, maybe even a red one.
I don't want to dwell on it too much. I don't know if you saw the documentary last night, so I have talked about it. Madeleine made a comment in passing that, where were you when I cried? Not just to mummy, by the way, just generally. It just seemed a bit odd. It was a very kind of passing remark, and we just thought she doesn't usually wake up, and she woke up, that means that, she must have fallen back asleep very quickly, and then she moved on.
I think another question that touches on this one is, how did the McCanns, and by extension the whole group of doctors, really feel about babysitting? Only they would know, but what we do know is they apparently didn't feel the babysitting service was good enough for them, otherwise they would have used it. But think about those words, in a sense Madeleine's last words, where were you when I cried? And this topic of neglect. Number 2, sleeping arrangements. Although it's regularly stated that Madeleine was sleeping in the other room with the twins, some have suggested that the twins slept with the McCanns in the parents' bedroom. Why? Well, because Madeleine had trouble sleeping, and either she was disturbing them or they were disturbing Madeleine. Now, what seems to give some credence to this notion is this image showing clearly the parents' beds moved away from the cupboard, well away from the cupboard, which would have provided enough room, certainly in theory, for the cots. We know Amaral speculated about the same thing. If the cots were in the parents' bedroom, then didn't it mean Madeleine did sleep alone? And if she slept alone, was that because she had trouble sleeping? And if she had trouble sleeping, how did the parents typically try to deal with that? Number 3, the night in question. Remember I mentioned an epiphany. During the night in question, Amaral believes Madeleine got up, fell off a sofa, and died of her injuries. Now, this reminds me of the scenario where John Bonet takes a piece of pineapple and is hit over the head in the kitchen with a flashlight. To me, it's crude. And so this same scenario from Amaral to me is crude, too crude, right? In other words, we are asked to accept that what happened to Madeleine happened when the parents were having dinner. And Amaral himself seems to believe that. That may be what Amaral believes, but not all of his colleagues agree. Some have suggested Madeleine may have died while Kate was with her in a 90-minute window. And this now deleted article from September 2007 from The Sun repeats this theory. Right, here's an excerpt. A source told them police believe the death happened before dinner in the period between 7 o'clock and 8:30. During this time, Madeleine's father was seen playing tennis at the complex. Therefore, the child and her twin siblings were in the charge of the mother. Now, what I think is quite important in that is the police being specific in terms of that timestamp. I'm just not sure that's the timestamp that they should be looking at.
I fear you might be right.
There is also potentially additional reinforcement to this theory from an upstairs witness, Mrs. Fenn's niece. Anyone know about that? It's beyond the scope of this analysis to deal with that, but her observations, as well as a few additional aspects, including the formation of cadaverine, how long that chemical process needs, will provide some interesting nuances to the timeline that very few seem to have considered. In any event, Amaral has said, quote, there is no hint, no proof that the child was kidnapped. On the contrary, there are hints that the parents were negligent, and there are hints there was hiding of the body. That's according to ex-lead investigator Detective Gonzalo Amaral through a translator. I think Detective Amaral is the sort of Kolar of the McCann case. And so he says, this was our point of view in 2007, that she was dead. Now, what hints do you think he's referring to? Going back to the article, Detective Amaral was so sure of the McCann's guilt that he went as far as publishing a book after he was taken off the case that suggested the British Secret Service MI5 helped conceal Madeleine's body. This is also a quote from that article. Well, I'm not sure I believe that. Do you?
Do you think there's a sense, I'm speculating obviously, but where the Portuguese police feel this is one case we don't want to revisit? There was so much publicity around it, and not all favourable publicity, certainly here, to the Portuguese police.
I think we had those concerns, but actually, if you speak to Andy Redwood and his team, he's senior investigating officer from the Met. He's saying, the people he's working with in Portugal do want to solve this.
This is also a mirror image to the Ramsey case, where you sort of have, after the fact, the parents complaining about the police, that the investigation is stalled, that they unfairly targeting them, and then the police in a way kind of unable to respond, unable to really say anything, and then basically the response from the police is really silence and a sense of intransigence.
Would you ever go back yourselves, put up some posters, or as another way of trying to generate interest and get more evidence again?
I mean, I do go back. I mean, I haven't been since last April, but I do go back for personal reasons. I mean, obviously that's...
You go back regularly, do you?
Well, I might once or twice a year. It's gone down to now.
So, was Madeleine alone when she died? Have you changed your mind on this question? If you think Madeleine died on May 3rd in the apartment, do you think that happened when the parents were at dinner, or that there was some other scenario? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.